Side note, on the other channel, we have begun playing Danganronpa. For all the Danganronpa references I've made on this channel throughout the years, we have finally begun it on the other channel, which is the gameplay channel. So, if you want to check that out, feel free to go check that out. So what I wanted to do in this video is talk about Yone, and because it's a Jinx channel, we'll talk about Yone in contrast to Jinx, playing against Jinx, what these moves mean for Jinx, and like her survivability, things like that, because you might not know on the PvE, like it was delayed for content creators and stuff to be able to get on there because they turned off practice tool and stuff like that. But on Surrender 20, they do have a post about Yone, and we're just going to kind of go over it and then talk about like, oh, like if Jinx was going against this ability as Jinx players, as a Jinx channel, what might we do to counteract these, actions? So stats and abilities, they actually have 550 base health, health per level is 7.5 it looks like, or no, health per level is 90. Let's see, they got some decent amount of armor, decent amount of base armor. The attack range is 175, so they're basically melee, but they have some really long swords, so keep that in mind. If for some reason you were laning against this, because I guess Yasuo has been the bottom lane, maybe people will start taking Yone in the bottom lane, you're going to outrange them with just the minigun, let alone the rockets. You'll actually probably never have to use the rockets in a straight up trade in that regard. Their base movement speed is 345, which is a lot more than Jinx's 325, so if for some reason you're in laning phase, and that's an issue, well, just be wary of that. Now, Yone does have a passive called Way of the Hunter. They use two blades, causing every second attack to deal 50% magic damage. Yone's critical strike chance is doubled, but his critical strikes deal 10% reduced damage. So basically, what's the point then of reducing the damage if it's going to be doubled? I kind of feel like maybe they saw Yasuo's passive and they're like, well, if we're making another Yasuo-esque champion, and we're kind of doing it again, how would we make that a bit more balanced? And maybe this is how they decided to do that, where it's doubled, but it's also, like, reduced. Which is, I think, kind of an interesting way to go about it, because it does make you want to build crit strike and critical, strike chance items. And the thing about that is it means you're probably building more glass cannon than, say, bruiser or tanky. Because I imagine, like Yasuo has the tank Yasuo build every now and then, when you're a melee champion, you need to go in on certain things. You kind of want that beefiness of the bruiser builds or tank builds give you for survivability, but it can make you really annoying to deal with. By doing a passive like this, I guess, I'm trying to think from their perspective as a balanced member, one of the things that it does is mean that even if they do crazy amounts of damage and stuff, they're going to be a glass cannon, which means they're going to be relatively squishy, susceptible to being CC'd and kind of destroyed that way. Will that actually play out? Like on paper that might be the case. In execution, will that play out? Not exactly sure per se, but I guess that's the idea. So in terms of if you were Jinx dealing with this, well, as we mentioned earlier, you just want to auto space them, keep out a safe range, whether it's in lane or it's just in a team fight. You want to basically stay away from them to prevent them from doing like the 50% magic damage and the critical strike damage. Is kind of like Yasuo in that instance, I guess. One thing I'm curious about is he has two swords. So is one sword the magic damage dealing sword and the other one's the crit one? Is it just 50% magic damage regardless? So if he had like 100 AD and he had crit chance, which means it's 200 AD, but it's 10% reduced, so it's 190 AD, does that mean 50% of that, which is what, a 95, is magic damage? So if you're a tank or something, you basically want to build mixed damage. But there's not tank Jinx as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know in the current meta as the point of recording this video, so that might not necessarily be a thing. I know even crit like fiddlesticks in the mid lane's a thing, so maybe crit Jinx. Season 10's that wild, we might see that. If we want to see her at Worlds, maybe she has to start building as like a bruiser tank 80 carry. Who knows? Let's see. Yone's Q is called Mortal Steel and has a 4-second cooldown. Yone thrusts forward, dealing physical damage. On hit, grants a stack, buff name is broken at the moment, for 6 seconds. At 2 stacks, this skill causes Yone to dash forward with a wave of wind that knocks up for 0.3 of a second and deals physical damage. This skill can critically strike, apply on-hit effects, is uninterrupted by crowd control, and its cooldown cast times are reduced by attack speed. So it sounds like Yasuo's Q actually, but instead of him throwing out a tornado, Yone has to actually dash to the target. Again, maybe it's like if they were doing Yasuo again, this might be a more quote-unquote balanced way to do it, because then Yone, he gets to kind of do all this foolishness, but he has to dash to you to do the foolishness, which means, again, if you have CC, if you survive, you're also a melee fighter, whatever the case is, he has to come to you to do this. It's kind of like the difference between, say, Blitzcrank Hook and Nautilus Hook, where Blitzcrank wants to pull you to them, and they might be with their team, and it's all good. While Nautilus has to pull himself towards you, so especially in lane phase when you're at your squishiest, if you land that wrong, or you go in, you really didn't want to, not only was that your way in and pulling you to the enemy, that was also your escape, and you're not getting out. So at least in that instance, you know, again, we talked about they're going to be more of a glass cannon, kind of a thing like that. In laning phase, what it means for Jinx is like Yasuo, because unlike Yasuo, what we don't know yet because we haven't gone over the whole kit, is Yasuo will dash around using his E through minion waves to get to you in a team fight if you're fighting near in like a minion wave. With this, it looks like they have to do it themselves. They kind of have to hit stuff in minions, sure, but again, they also have to dash to you, and without the E ability. But again, it feels like because there's effects on the ability, you can clearly see when he's dashing, where he's dashing, and you can even put down the flame chompers perhaps. It does say it's uninterruptible by crowd control, so don't actually throw the flame chompers down when he's dashing, but when he's done dashing, right? And again, hopefully you have teammates that decide they actually love you enough that they actually want to at least look your way, so when you're dying, you can be like, hey, this is your fault, and point right at them, right? No, but like on a more serious note, it looks like because of the visuals and stuff like that, you might get like with Yasuo's dashing, you can see when he's dashing, but there's not like a bunch of wind and tornado effects around him on the E. With this one, there's a clear effect. I don't know how well you can see it on the recording right now, but like there's a clear like effect and stuff going on right here that might be able to help out if you have good reflexes and stuff like that. Maybe, we'll see. On the W is called Spirit Cleave. Yone cleaves forward, dealing max health physical damage and max health magic damage. Oh, percentage max health damage. We're into this again. All right, here we go. If Yone hits, he gains a shield for 1.5 seconds. The amount of shield increases for each champion struck. Okay, so unlike Yasuo, who he gets like the passive from kind of like walking around and stuff like that, this one is like you have to hit champions, you have to proactively do things to get your shield. So again, if for some reason you're dealing with this as Jinx, and they're not hitting you, they're not hitting your support, they're not hitting anybody, it sounds to me, if I'm reading this correctly, they won't be getting a shield. You could probably switch to your rocket form to play it safe, and just attack him from long range as well, and make him, like basically punish him for trying to close the distance and get damage on either your allies or yourself, right? Like he's gonna get damage on you possibly if he's close enough anyways, but because of the range and because he doesn't get the shield unless he's like striking enemy champions, if I'm reading this correctly, you can kind of damage him a bit first, and that way maybe you can kind of go blow for blow a bit and flash away if you need to, or if he's relatively squishy because he's behind, be able to do something with that extra time and your extra range. Hopefully. My job is also to be like unnecessarily optimistic, also pessimistic sometimes when it comes to patches, but in this case optimistic about like your chances, because you might be like a really good Jinx player, and so things like these might not bother you the way it might bother a beginner player. So E is Soul Unbound. Yone enters a spirit form for 5 seconds, leaving your body behind for the duration, and gaining 10% wrapping movement speed. When the spirit form ends, I guess we'll say spirit form, Yone snaps back to his body and repeats 25 up to 35% of all damage he dealt to champions during this time. He may recast this skill during spirit form. Now, one of the things it shows in the skin spotlights video is if you use this ability under the tower, like you leave your body out of tower range, but you put this body under tower range, you'll still take damage here, and when you snap back, you'll take damage for however much damage you took under tower. I think that's pretty fair. In regards to this ability though, what it means is like you leave yourself here, and then this guy can kind of go walk around, you basically control them and you go attack, and then afterwards, it doubles the damage when it comes back. This is kind of an interesting one, I feel, because in the skin spotlight video, like, there was no enemies around and stuff like that. I feel like, and I could be wrong, this ability might be a lot more riskier than it feels like visually it looks like it is to use. Because like, what if someone tries to CC your body over here? Let's say you're Jinx, this guy's chasing you down over here, but your ally Lee Sin decides, I'm gonna try and help out. So he jumps over here, ward hops, and like punts like the real Yone. Does that break the spirit form? Does it just mean he just gets wailed on his main body while his spirit form's off doing stuff? Like, let's say he kills you in the 5 seconds, but Lee Sin's been beating him up. When he snaps back, whatever trade damage he took from you and whatever damage Lee Sin's done, does he basically just die at that point? Like, you have to be really careful about where you plant your body especially in a team fight. I imagine this is going to be more useful in laning phase. Again, probably not against a Jinx, because you're probably not laning against Jinx in the laning phase and vice versa. But like in a team fight, I feel like, can you even use this move? Is like your body invulnerable? It's not really clear here, and I couldn't quite tell in the video itself. So what this does mean though, is if the body ends up being like not vulnerable, CC that sucker. If he's gonna come for you anyways, he's gonna be able to get to you anyways, just like with your support, go after the main body. See if you can maybe break the spirit form by CCing that. Use your range to your effect. If you have like a Thresh, let Thresh be the one that gets up in the face, of course, with Flay and stuff. But like use your flame choppers, use Zap, try and like use the rockets, like break the spirit form ASAP if that is how this works. If that's not how this works, I would honestly just recommend run. There are so many abilities in League of Legends that are underrated if you just run away from them. And some people are like, oh, that's cowardly and stuff. It's like, well, death isn't really very useful in a team fight, is it? Like, it's like Alawi. Alawi, when she ults, just leave the area. Like, just leave. Just be like, peace out, Alawi. See you later. I don't want to bother with this. And then when the ultimate's done or the duration's done, you can come back and fight Alawi afterwards. Because if you just stay in the ultimate, you're not going to outdo her healing and stuff if she's even kind of fed. So something to just look at, maybe that's what this ability is. It's like, it's just kind of like a, hey, if it's only lasts for 5 seconds, just run. You're Jinx. You don't need to prove anything to anybody except for the victory screen at the end of the game when people say you're an AD carry, you should have carried. So one of the ways you carry isn't always by damage and isn't always by, like, you know, killing enemy champions. Sometimes it's just being smarter than your opponent, and that's how you get the W at the end of the game. So with the R, it's called Fate Sealed. It has no cost. Yone strikes all enemies along a path, dealing 100, 200, 300 total physical damage. Oh, and total 80 damage on top of that, magic damage, teleporting behind the last enemy hit and knocking them up. So it's kind of like, again, like Yasuo's Tornado, except that you are the projectile. And if you do it, you'll knock everybody up. And if you have a Yasuo on your team, this is going to be, they're going to work really well together, actually. If there's ever team compositions, it looks like that can have both a Yasuo, say like mid lane and Yone top, or Yone mid lane and Yasuo top. Or again, Yasuo bottom, so that's sometimes a thing. So you go like, let's say, Ornn top, set jungle, Yone mid, Yasuo bot, and then some sort of like hard engage or magic damage support. That way you're not too much on the AD, right? So maybe like Brand support, Karthus support, Braum support, Teemo support with Smite. I don't know. It's up to you. Live your dreams. I don't really care. But with that being said, right, if that's the case, there's a lot of synergy there. If you are the enemy, the thing about this, the way I kind of think about it, I kind of designed some kits here and there, like parts of kits. This reminds me of an assassin kit I made, except that it worked a little bit differently. They throw out a projectile of themselves first, and it stunned everybody in a path if it hit them, and that way you could dodge it, and then they dash and do a bunch of damage. So that way the counterplay was if you dodge the stun, they completely whiff the damage part of it too. So it kind of reminds me of that though. It's like a projectile. It's like a straightforward shot. It's more of a dash, of course. It's a lot faster version of the Super Mega Death Rocket if you want to go like there, if something like that, if that helps you kind of think about more what this ability is. It's him dashing in a straight line. It's a bit of a long range thing, and it can hit a lot of people in it. Even like Vile, when she locks onto somebody, but instead of knocking away people that you like kind of charge through, you just like run through them for amount of damage and you knock up people, or at least the last person hits get knocked up. So for some reason you're clustered with your allies, like your support and your mid laner, but like your support, let's say Thresh again, is the one in the back. You all will take damage, but only Thresh will get knocked up. So I don't want to say like make sure to walk into this, but if you can't dodge it, it's a guarantee you can't dodge it, but you're with other people, try to be the one that gets hit first so you don't get knocked up, because the less time you're CC'd, the more time you might have a chance to survive and not die because you're knocked up, and that might enable other champions on his team to be able to kind of go in and kill you. Does that make sense? Maybe not? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, but with that being said, so like, yeah, Jinx versus this champion is going to be interesting, because if I want to make a bold statement, because it's YouTube, I should make a bold statement. Yone will not be broken. They will definitely be very powerful. They will definitely be something that people will still ban anyways. But I actually think, if I want, for the sake of YouTube, I'm saying, make like a bold prediction, a bold analytical claim, even if I don't necessarily agree with my own claim here. I will say he won't be broken outside of numbers, right? Like obviously most champions are released, their numbers are tuned pretty high. I think even Riot's admitted this. It's because since it is a new champion, a lot of people want to play it. It's new, it's fresh, it's something everybody wants to get their hands on. So by making it strong, it allows a lot of people to get their hands on it and kind of enjoy playing it. And then they kind of nerf it down afterwards, and the people that like play it, and even with it strong, they're like, oh, it's not really my thing, never mind. They're gonna put it down anyways, even if it was strong. But the people that kind of want to commit to learning the champion, even when the nerfs start coming in, as long as they're not too heavy, they're not like hobbling his ankles out of existence, they're gonna still stick with the champion because they're like, yeah, we kind of saw this coming, it was gonna be a thing, but I kind of like the champion, even with the nerfs, I'm still gonna play the champion, and they kind of solidify a bit of a player base through this tactic. With that being said, I don't think this champion is gonna be like super out of control. Because I think even though it plays, there's some things that kind of definitely remind you of Yasuo. Some people say like, it's Yasuo 2.0. I feel like if it is, it's more of a, if we were doing Yasuo again, here's some of the things we would have put in the kit to make it feel a bit better to play against the kit, right? Like we talked about on the Q, I believe it was, how there's like the thrusting forward and stuff like that. But there's only the damage or the shield and stuff. I think it might have been the W. Yeah, on the W, right? The cleaving and stuff. You only get the shield if for each champion struck. So if you're not striking champions, you don't get the shield. With Yasuo, you get the shield from walking around. And for some people, it feels like the shield even generates a bit too fast for walking around. Like it should take longer for generating, since all you have to do is walk around back and forth in lane, even if you're getting pushed in. With this, you got to be proactive about it. And I think that's probably maybe the difference between Yasuo and Yone. Yone, you're going to have to be proactive. If you're not proactive, there's certain things you're not going to be able to do that maybe a Yasuo could have did anyways. Right? Like Yone has knockups in his own kit. He's not the one that's benefiting if everybody else has knockups. Things like that, right? So if this is Yasuo 2.0, I'm going to say it's not going to be broken. It's going to be powerful. It's going to be something you probably want to pick up and learn, especially if he's in like a top lane, mid laner champion position and you're a top and mid laner player. You probably want to put him in your back pocket for now. He might be pretty meta for quite some time until they go and nerf him down a bit. But I actually don't think he's going to be like a Phelios or something like that. We're going to be talking about him like 6 months later because we don't even know what it is he does, right? For better or for worse, if anything, the Yasuo 2.0 analogy signals to me that we do understand what he does, at least enough to kind of think about how to play with him and then how to play against him, because that's what we conclude the video on. You know, we talk about Yone versus Jinx. What about Yone with Jinx, right? What do you do and what do you want to do if you're playing with this champion on your team? The first thing that sticks out to me is the knockups. When he's knocking up people, you want to have your flame chompers ready. Like with most champions that have CC on your team, like hard engage supports and stuff like that, when there's a knockup potential, you want to be CCing that person. You want that person to be chain CC'd for so long, not stacked, chain CC'd for so long that they have to contemplate why did they play League of Legends in Season 10 after all. They thought they were okay, and they really weren't okay because, yeah, all this CC and stuff happening from old and new champions alike. That's one of the main things that sticks out to me. Two, if this champion's going in a lot, they might be able to draw attention off of you. We've talked about this on the Jinx subreddit even. Showing up late to fights, kind of on purpose, not too late to fights, but like not being the first one in a fight or near a fight when it breaks out as Jinx to try and force people to blow their CC and ultimates on other people. Yone, between his shield and stuff, if he's half decent, might be able to draw some of that attention onto him, which might allow you to free fire and auto attack safely in the background a bit, and then save your flame chompers even, so that way if the fight starts turning south, you can still have your CC kind of set up, or even make a wall with the flame chompers to retreat back against, and force kind of team fights to continue in your favor a bit that way. So kind of look for Yone basically to engage, not to be like the engage, but look for him to kind of go in first in a team fight, maybe draw attention off of you, because he is doing a high amount of damage, so they can't ignore him the same way they might try to ignore a Maokai or an Ornn. Even though those guys, you know, tanks doing damage, at the same time, you might ignore them if you think you have an opening on the enemy AD carry. Yone, if you ignore, like Yasuo, is a carry in his own right and will kill you himself, so you got to be wary of that and kind of plan accordingly around that aspect. So that being said, that's going to be it for this video. In the comment section down below, obviously, even though I said it was a bold prediction, if you agree or even disagree, feel free about, you know, Yone not being broken, etc. But furthermore, what do you think, as a Jinx channel, how do you think it will be playing against this champion, and how do you think it will be playing with this champion? But that's all from this video from me. So thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell notification, the actual subscribe button. But I don't know which video will be next, because life can have a lot of kinks. So until next time, take care. GG, get jinxed. Thank you for watching, and enjoy pizza responsibly. Also